Welcome to the Grace Way, a program from Grace Baptist Academy. Each episode is designed to share the heart and vision of our school through thought-provoking conversations, biblical truth, and meaningful insight. Whether we are answering your questions, outlining our philosophy, hearing from our staff or other professionals, our goal is to strengthen the partnership between home and school, all for the glory of God. And now, here's your host, Craig Carpenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Grace Way, where we continue our series, How to Be a Great Student. Today, we are going to go over a very important concept in the world of academia, and that is thoughts on writing and listening. Well, in other words, we're going to talk about good note-taking. So, get your notes out, get your pen out, get your piece of paper out, and today, let's practice this concept ourselves, where we talk about the concept of good note-taking. Now, let's start off by explaining what is the primary goal of note-taking. And I think we would say that the primary goal of note-taking is to be able to guide you and help you remember, understand, and be able to apply the information given at a later time. One of the things that I have come to understand here is that as I've gone to multiple different teacher conferences at this point, and really, there's a lot of good information that is given, but really, it is information overload. And those of you who have been to those types of conferences will understand what I'm talking about when I say that. But you really get a lot of good information, a lot of good things that you would like to implement in your classrooms, lots of good things that you maybe would like to implement in your school, but there's no possible way that you can remember them all or, well, even implement them all. But at the same time, there's so many good things that you might want to reference later. And so really what you need to do is, and if you're an adequate note taker, you really want to write down something that will trigger the memory of the needed information. Recently, I was going back through my notes, and I had remembered something that had been discussed at one of these teacher conferences, and I wanted to employ the tactic in the school. And so I was able to really scrounge up through all the notes that I had taken, and I was actually able to find it, and I had really only written down a few words, but I was able to find it because I had written something down, not the whole piece of the pie, not the entire pie, but it was a piece of the pie, or at least enough of a piece of the pie, to trigger the thought, to trigger the information in my mind that I needed to know. And that really is what good note-taking does. Primary goal of note-taking is to be able to guide you and help you remember, to be able to help you remember, understand, and be able to apply the information given at a later time. I think we would also say that the purpose of note-taking is to help you think alongside, well, in students, in your case, it's to think alongside the class. The purpose of note-taking is to help you think alongside the class. It really should kind of be that guiding light through your notes. Really, you're capturing not only what the speaker is saying, but also the essence in which he is saying it. Then lastly, I think also, and this is kind of just a free plug, but good notes have lots of questions in them. Good notes have lots of questions in them. One of the things I like about the setup that we have here at Grace Baptist Academy is that I give the teachers freedom to give notes how really they think is the best way. And even in my own classes, I give notes in slightly different formats for the sole purpose that when students, if the Lord would like them, or if it's in the Lord's will for them to go to college, that they can one day be experienced with different styles or different formats of taking notes. And so in some cases, the students at our school will have to write verbatim from the PowerPoint, or they'll have to write verbatim what was said. In other words, or in other classes, they might have to do fill-in-the-blank notes, where they only had to really record one or two notes that the speaker says. In other classes, they might not have to take notes really at all. There may be no formal notes given, but they're still required to take notes. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is that you really don't know what you're going to come across in college. And I would say that in most experiences in college, and again, college is not the only career path. College is not the only path that a student can take, but I'm just using this as an example because it will primarily be used by those who do go to college. And that is, you really don't know what your professor is going to expect to require you. Or require from you. They may just hand you a huge packet. They may hand you the notes right from the get-go, and that's pretty awesome. And so you really need to know how to take notes when you it would appear at least that you have all the notes, and then in the other formats as well. Now, what are some things that we can do to be a good note taker? Well, first of all, I think we need to prepare to take notes in advance. What does that mean? Well, first of all, we have multiple writing utensils in case one fails. Okay, you've all been in the classroom when that student only brought one pencil and then very loudly in the middle of a quiz or test, what happens? Well, it pops. Well, the same thing is true when you're taking notes. Sometimes the writing utensil fails, the pen runs out of ink. Maybe you even drop it and it rolls down the floor, down to the front of the auditorium, and you can hear it clanging off the different posts that hold up the chairs. Ask me how I know. Okay, but you need to have multiple writing utensils in case one fails. I urge people to take notes in pen just because, especially, and not just pen, but especially blue pen or a bright color, maybe not a distracting color. That's why I recommend blue, so that'll jump off the page. I'm not saying that a pencil is not okay. I'm also a fan of if you have highlighters off to the side that you want to highlight things as you go, as we'll talk about highlighting in a moment. But I believe that everybody needs to have multiple writing utensils in case one fails. Students, one of the things that I did when I was growing up in school was I set up all of my binders the same way. Okay, so I had a 1-inch binder for each class. And in the front of each binder, what I did was I had a dedicated pencil pouch for each class and each binder. And in that pencil pouch, I kept 2 blue pens and 2 pencils and a pink eraser. Okay, that was more than enough to get me through the class hour. Okay, and if one failed, I had 3 backups that were right there to help me. And if 2 failed, okay, you get the gist. But also, and if one failed in class, I would go back to my locker and I had an extra cachet of blue pens and pencils that I would immediately add to that pencil pouch. Okay, you don't have to do it the way I do it. I just am recommending you a way. And that leads me right into my next point, which is to have a dedicated plan to take notes. Now, I don't mean, okay, I'm going to walk into class today and take notes. That's not what I mean. I mean to carry a notebook or note cards with you to jot things down to remember, or like in the example that I just used where you use 1 binder per class and you have your notes in the same spot. For instance, for my binders, I had my all my blank pieces of paper in the very back of my binder, and I would move them up to the section labeled notes, and which would be the first of the divided sections in my binder. Okay, again, you do not have to do it the way I did it. I recommend that you do it because I believe it will help you be organized, but you need to have that dedicated plan. You need to have a plan for you to take notes. You need to know the plan. Okay, now, this point goes right in line with my next thought, and that is to identify the note-taking method that works best for you and then consistently use that method. Does that mean you use a blue pen or a black pen or a red pen? Does it mean that you use highlighter? Does it mean, and when you get to college and you have the opportunity to type, do you type things out while the professor is lecturing, or do you hand write them out with your own pen or pencil? My recommendation to you is that you experiment until you find the way. Now, at our school, you're not going to have the opportunity to experiment typing while the teacher is actually talking, because there'll probably be a distraction at the grade level that we are instructing. However, one of the things that I also recommend that you do is that you carry a pen or a pencil around with you at all times so that you can jot things down or jot notes to yourself or keep track of things. Anybody that knows me knows that I carry around a notebook, and I lovingly refer to my notebook as my brain. Why? Because my brain needs to be on paper for me to function. I have identified that is the note-taking method that works best for me. I primarily work off of checklists, okay? I write all the things down that I need to talk to people about or that I need to accomplish personally. I also do it to write certain Bible notes, my Bible lessons, and other things, okay? Again, you don't have to do the same thing that I do. I'm just encouraging you to find a way that works for you. I do think there are ways, or there are methods that do not work. Okay, the best example that I can think of, and this is not necessarily in regard to note-taking, but I can say that the suitcase binders or 1 binder for all your class is not ideal. Okay, I've seen too many students try to utilize that suitcase binder, or what I call a suitcase binder. It's just a massive binder, 3 to 5 inches or so, that will contain or is expected to contain all of the papers from all of your classes in 1 binder. I don't really see that working very well. But my admonishment to you is that you experiment until you find the way that works for you. I know what way works for me. I carry a notebook everywhere I go. I have a blue pen that comes with me everywhere I go. I keep notes in the same format so that I can find things easier, because using the same way will help you be able to locate and remember things easier. Now, next thing, listen or write. Try not to do both at the same time. So again, in college and down the line, when you go, like I referenced these teacher conferences earlier, I imagine many of the people under my voice will go to a conference to help them in their career or in other avenues. Maybe you'll go to even a preaching conference. Okay. The point I'm trying to make here is you cannot write every word of the message, and the speaker is not going to even stop so that you can write down a word or a phrase. But that's what we need to do. We need to write down phrases or short sentences, because we cannot try and write out every word of a message. As a freshman in college, you would often attend classes with other freshmen. And there's always one or two people in the class of 100 people or so that are trying to scribble down every word that the professor is saying. Well, what's really happening is first of all, you can't write that fast. It's physically impossible. Secondly, all of the information is coming from the professor's mouth into the listener's ears and out their pen without stopping at their brain or impacting their heart. Okay, nothing is going to be accomplished if you just try to focus on writing down as much as possible. So remember, the purpose of taking notes is to help you think alongside the class, to capture not only what the speaker is saying, but also the essence and how he is saying it. So I need to be thinking, what is this professor really trying to say? Now, some people will think and say, well, what is going to be on the quiz? Or what do I think is going to be on the test? And that's what I'm going to write down. Okay. If you've ever been to college, you know that's generally not how it works. Or there are various cases, and everybody has a different college experience. I remember, in an immature point in my life, arguing with somebody about what college experiences were going to be, because they had a relatively easy college experience where it was basically a complete joke. And I'm going, yes, but not all of our students are going to have that opportunity. Okay. I think I just subliminally tried to win you to my side in an argument that I had a long time ago. But nevertheless, that's not my goal here. My goal is just to try and explain, or to try to illustrate the point that everybody has a different college experience. I don't want to, scare you, but I also want to try and prepare you for what the most difficult college experience might be, and I probably can't even do that. I don't think it'd be possible to prepare you for the most difficult college experience, but I'm going to try to prepare you for whatever the Lord has for you in your next step. So listen or write. Try not to do both at the same time. Obviously, the professor, obviously the speaker, obviously the pastor, the preacher is not going to stop and let you write down the words or phrases, but don't try to write out every word of a message. Just try to write out those phrases or their short sentences. Now, remember that you're only trying to write something down that will help you remember the item at a later time. Okay, next. After the speech is over, immediately review your notes. Why am I going to want to immediately review my notes? Well, first of all, I want to highlight the most important points or concepts. Now, do I mean to note, or do I mean that you should actually take a highlighter and actually physically highlight the notes? No, I do not actually in this case. I think I just used the word actually like 4 times. Forgive me here. But what I mean is to go back through and maybe star or put an asterisk or something that draws your attention to maybe what the key concept was, or what the key concepts were, what the major points were, what the main points were. Maybe the professor even said during the lecture, hey, know this for your quiz. You're going to need to know this for your quiz or for your test that's coming up. So you want to take a star. Again, identify a method that works for you. If it's underlining, underline it. If it's starring it, star it. If it's putting an asterisk at the right side, put an asterisk on the right side. If it's putting an asterisk on the left side, put an asterisk on the left side. If it's highlighting it, highlight it. If it's highlighting it in pink, highlight it in pink. If it's highlighting it in blue, okay, you get the gist at this point. Okay, and I don't want to bore you to death here, but highlight the most important points or concepts, the major takeaways that you want to take away from the speech. Then, next, fill in or add additional context to some notes as needed. So if we're trying to write or trying to think alongside the class, what we're really doing is we're writing phrases or short sentences or maybe keywords that I can remember later. But if you've ever looked at your notes, and by the way, here's a total side note, you need to make sure if you're writing that you write legibly. it is the worst thing to when, and again, this is more of a college experience thing, is when you take notes in class, you go back home and you pull out your notes to study, and then you look at your writing and you are just dead tired and you can't even read what you wrote. Okay, if you can't read your own handwriting, that's a problem. So again, young people, when the teacher encourages you to write neatly, they're not just encouraging you to write neatly for their sake so that they can give you a grade on the quiz, the test, or the homework assignment that you've turned in. They are trying to illustrate the principle that one day you will be in a position where you are going to want to remember what you have written down. And very simple principle here. If you can't read it, you're not going to be able to remember it for very long. So that's a total side note. Glad we completed that side quest today. But fill in or add additional context to some notes as needed. What do I mean by that? Well, you just wrote a word, a phrase, short sentence down, but and again, I'm sure you've experienced this before, that you've gone back a day, 2 days later, and you're like, oh, I need to remember what the teacher said. And so you open your notebook and you look down and you're going, boy, what does that mean? Okay, because you only wrote 3 words. So really, it's important that as soon as the speech is done, as soon as the lecture is done, as soon as the lesson is done, as soon as the sermon is done, you go back through and add additional context where needed. Okay, you didn't have all the time in the world to write down while the speaker was speaking, but now that it's over and it's still fresh in your brain, you can go back and remember, or you can go back and write down so you can more easily remember or recall what the speaker said. Just as a side note, a lot of, in some cases, of course, you could record lectures or certain sessions of a conference. But in college, typically, I know there was in the college that I went to, there was a rule against recording lectures. That serves a very practical purpose. Of course, you can take these courses online, and so obviously the colleges wants to make money, and so most colleges, most institutions, educational institutions aren't going to allow recording equipment in their classrooms. So just some things to remember, you might not be able to actually record. It just depends. Again, every college experience is different. It's just something that you need to prepare for. Then lastly, have a separate list of things to look up. Now, this goes kind of right in line with my spiritual gift, but one of the things that a person with the spiritual gift of teaching does is typically they're going to be the glorified fact checker, you could say. They're going to be the person that's going to want to Google something that you say just to make sure that it's accurate. And it's not done cynically, but it is done to really satisfy the curiosity of the learner. And I believe what it means to be a lifelong learner also entails, wanting to look up or investigate farther for yourself. One of the things that we like to do here at Grace Baptist Academy is we like to create lifelong learners. How do we do that? Well, we encourage people to read. We encourage people to study things out for themselves. But our approach is centered on cultivating lifelong learners. Hearing that students are seeking out knowledge on their own time really is something that we love to hear. We emphasize critical thinking. Why? To engage students in higher levels of thought. And one of the things I tell the teachers all the time is our number one goal in the classroom is to obtain higher levels of thinking. We encourage creativity within bounds and within guidelines, but we also strive to bring excitement to the learning process. These are just some of the things that we try and do here at our school to encourage lifelong learners. But one of the things that you can do on your own is you can go and you can create a list of things to look up at a later time. Perhaps maybe it's an unknown vocabulary word. Maybe you want to cite the speaker, right? Maybe you want to look up a stat that they themselves cited. Maybe there's a new concept or a new idea that was presented, and you want to experiment, or you want to look it up yourself. I remember a couple, maybe now, I can't remember how long it was, but I was at a teacher's conference, and it was a couple months ago now that I think about it, and they were talking about a product, and I wrote that down. In fact, there's a section in my notebook, which again, I lovingly refer to as my brain. Why? Because this idea would have been completely lost if I wouldn't have wrote it down. But I wrote down the name of the product under the heading, things I am researching. Okay, again, I'm not encouraging you, or I'm not demanding that you copy me exactly. I'm just trying to help you with a practical side of life. I'll close with this. I can't close with this because I have one other thing to say, but maybe unless you are lazy, a good speaker, and again, I know that probably sounds like a hammer, and it's not my intention to be a hammer, but it is an admonishment to those of you who are. Okay, moving past that. But unless you're a lazy, good speaker is going to prompt you to want to look up things on your own. I had a great history teacher in college, and boy, he brought up so many concepts, but I felt like he only gave us a taste. But man, my thrift books cart was crying out because I wanted to buy so many books on the topics that he covered. Why? Because he whetted the appetite. He made me want to go and learn more about the subject that he presented in class. That was a luxury that I had. I'm very grateful, very thankful. But have a separate list of things to look up, things like stats, new concepts, to confirm claims, fact check the speaker. And so, and again, like I said, a good speaker is going to prompt you to want to look things up on your own. One of the things, and like I said, back to the closing here. I know, I'm sorry if you felt like I lied to you there. We're almost done. But I love to dwell in the practical side. I think there's so much of life that needs to just be made practical. I remember I was out to lunch with a prominent speaker in the Baptist circles, and had the privilege of sitting with him for lunch, along with a couple of others from our church. And one of the questions that I asked him was, how do you know the difference between a spiritual decision and a practical decision? And what he said was it's never going to leave me. And so again, I'll leave you with this. He said, you know what? The Spirit of God is not going to descend upon you like a dove every time you make a decision. You need to make a decision. And because, if you think about it practically and realistically, we make thousands of decisions a day. Sure, we think, we try to boil life down to the big decisions. Okay, we've used the example today. Where am I going to go to college? What job am I going to have? And all those decisions. But we make so many decisions. What pair of shoes am I going to wear today? Okay, what clothes am I going to wear today? What route am I going to take to school today? Or what route am I going to take to work today? Am I going to get up when instead of hitting snooze on the alarm clock 3 or 4 times? Am I going to walk to school with a smile on my face? Am I going to pay attention in class? Am I going to take notes? Okay, there's thousands of decisions that we have to make today. And what he's saying is the Spirit of God is not going to descend upon you like a dove every time you need to make a decision, because the Spirit of God would be too busy. Okay, I think I just limited God there, but that was not my intent. But you get what I'm saying. The Spirit of God is not going to descend upon you like a dove. But if we're walking with the Lord, spiritual decisions become practical. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Sorry for butchering the verse there, but understand that I love to dwell in the practical side. And so much about being a good student is rooted in the practical side of what it means or what it takes to be a good student. And so little of it is natural ability. Does natural ability play a part? Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, natural ability does play somewhat of a part in being a good student. However, it plays a little part. One of the things I'm pleased about our school is that our grading system is set up to reward hard work and effort. A student who is a C and D student can do well at our school because, all they have to do is really do their homework and their seat work and do generally well on the quizzes or the tests. It's not a secret. This is something that we actively tell the students at our school and about our school. And one of the things I love about our school, the grading system is not always an accurate measure of a student's abilities. However, at our school, we try to measure one ability, and it's not an ability. It's a character trait, and that's the character trait of hard work and effort. I love talking about the practical side of life. I love talking about the practical side of schooling. And I pray that this lesson on note-taking will help you now and help you in the future. What things are you going to add to your life? What things are you going to apply to your life today? Remember, one of the things about taking notes, and if you sat there and took notes along with the lesson today, we said not only is the note-taking supposed to guide you and help you remember and understand, but it's also meant to help you be able to apply that information at a later time. I pray that this lesson, this practical lesson, was a blessing to you. The Bible says, let everything be done decently and in order. And I hope that you will treat note-taking the same way. Students, let us continue walking the grace way together.
Thank you for listening to The Grace Way. We hope today's message strengthened your connection to both the Lord and our ministry. If you have any questions you would like to have answered on the program or would like to connect with us, please email us at thegraceway@gbaos.org. Until next time, let us continue walking the Grace Way together.